Hi, this is Brandon from Talk Tech, back here again with a new video, which is going to be the first in a new series that I'm going to be starting called Linux Sundays. This will be an evolving series, taking maybe different formats as the channel progresses. I wanted to go ahead and utilize this day that's typically for worship and kind of winding down the weekend, spending time with family, to be able to give us an opportunity to be able to worship what is Linux and spend time with the Linux family. Now, I do plan on turning this into more of a live streaming series, just because I do want to be able to interact more with viewers. But that's going to come once I am actually have more than the 2 subscribers that I have right now. So I want to go ahead and do this in a video format to be able to go ahead and start introducing the channel and work my way into that. See, you're always going to know it's Linux Sunday because you're going to hear the air horn. That's how you know it's Linux Sunday. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this first episode, I wanted to cover learning Linux for free. With the advent of technology and the internet and all the resources that are at our disposal today, especially with things that are technology related, you can really learn just about anything. And, this isn't even, only related to learning, something that's technology oriented. You can learn history, you can learn law, you can learn mathematics, you can learn science, anything on the internet. Now, one of the things that I will say is a prerequisite for any learning through this format is going to be a desire to learn. Now, it does take discipline to do it this way because you're not always going to have a structured curriculum or anything like that. So you're going to kind of have to create it. Honestly, just moseying on through things is not necessarily going to be a bad thing. A lot of the stuff that I've learned thus far, it's really just me doing a Google search. Oh, typing in my problem, occasionally using Reddit. A lot of this stuff we're going to get into in a little bit more detail as I'm going throughout this video. I'm going to cover quite a few free resources that you can utilize to learn Linux. Now, why is Linux important is a question that a lot of people will have. And there's always the Linux versus Mac versus Windows debate, but really the way that the world's moving, especially within the data center, as Linux is just becoming more and more relevant. Maybe not at the end user level, but overall, if you're going to want to get your hands dirty and work within these lines of business, even having some kind of, elementary understanding of Linux is going to be very, very important. And I know that there's varying opinions, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not here to debate or argue. I'm just here to give my own personal opinion, and this is how I feel about this subject. So, it's really with Linux is you can make it whatever you want. You can literally, if you wanted to, you could literally go into your own closed environment where you have literally developed everything from the ground up. You can create operating systems, you can create programs, you can create games, and really you can do anything. This is really the ultimate do-it-yourself or ultimate, God experience, if you will, where you can create basically anything that you want. And, the proliferation of it is just, it's not necessarily advertised, but it's been huge. You have Android that's based on Linux, Chrome OS that's based on Linux. You have the Windows subsystem being added to Windows, allowing you to run Linux and Linux apps and stuff like that directly on your Windows device. So there is so much you can do. And include, one of the things that kind of really fascinated with me about it, and got me into it was first I took Google's IT certification course, and I was like, they were like Linux, and I was like, okay, well, I've heard of Linux, but why is this relevant? Everybody uses Windows, occasionally Mac. Like, why is this even relevant? And honestly, that kind of started my love for Linux was that, and I'm sorry about um, that fading there. That was because I'm just using my simple screen recorder to go ahead and record everything. It did start to time out, but I did catch it, so I will make sure to adjust those settings in the future. But that program is that Google's IT professional certification or whatever they call it. It's under the Grow with Google. It really introduced me to it, and it just kind of just got more curious about it as time went on. And I'm like, this is something that's new and something that I've heard about, but I didn't know a lot about. And some people thought it was, they associated with hackers and things like that. And yeah, because of Kali Linux and stuff like that. Um, but I never had that experience. And then I had a friend that mentioned to me about this device called Raspberry Pi, and literally everything in that environment is really built around Linux. They've even done some, I don't want to say rip-offs, but they've done some, um, reimaginations of Mac OS and, Windows operating systems in the Linux world, that runs on a single board computer, one that's got a itty bitty little, 4-core process, maybe running at like 1.8 gigahertz or 1.6 or something like that, and then like a gigabyte of RAM, but yet you can still get a computing experience. It's not always going to be the best, at least as far as compared to more powerful devices, but that world really revolves around Linux, and so this is a really important topic, and there's lots of channels that are going to be dedicated to this subject. There's a lot of great resources, and there's a lot of great people. You're gonna have your people who love it, who will help anybody, who will answer every question, will sit there and probe with you for hours because they love it so much. And then you'll have the ones who are jerks, who berate you for not knowing something or not asking this properly or putting this file in there, or whatever the case is. But that's like any kind of community. But really, overall, I've really felt like there's a lot of positivity that comes out of the Linux community. So a lot of the resources that I'm going to go over today are stuff that I've used directly myself at one point in time or another, and that's really just throwing yourself into it and just kind of continuing to use it and really just just engrossing yourself in everything that is Linux is really going to be the best approach really to learn this stuff. And I'm not saying say, all right, screw you, Mac OS or Windows, and then just make everything Linux overnight. Because now you can do it with desktops, laptops, phones. There's actually the Pine phone. That's out, and then there's a couple other ones, a couple other devices, and you can also port Linux over to certain devices and things like that. So you could literally make your whole life revolve around Linux. It's gonna what approach you want to take is solely up to you. I use a hybrid. I just because I have no choice but to really work within a Windows environment in the world that we live in, and most people don't have a choice. So I still utilize it, and there's certain things that honestly just work better with Windows. And at this stage of the game, I'm just going to accept that, and I'm going to hope that we can change that as a community um, in the future. Now, let's go ahead and start getting into these different resources. I will go ahead and link some of them down in the comments, so you can go ahead and check these resources out yourself. Now, the first thing that I want to go ahead and start with is Ryan's tutorials. There is a a very, very kind soul out there named Ryan Chadwick, who has put together multiple free learning resources on his website. You can read more about him here on his website. This one will be linked down in the description. There's lots of different things that you can learn on his site, and there's a lot of the tutorials are very simple, easy to understand, and he has a really good approach to it. I'm not going to go ahead and get into different tutorials here. I'm just going to kind of show you this resource. Like you can see right here, the very first one that's lined up there is Linux tutorial. This, I've done this one myself. It is great, gives you a great introduction. I know for me personally, I like to start with, kind of a broad, simple overview before making my way into something much more complex. And you'll see that here, because right next to that, he has bash scripting. I've actually done a video on a simple installation script, and I utilized some of the tools that I read through in this course. I haven't gone through all of it, but I have gone through pieces of it. And it does both of these do a great job of working and making the material easy to understand and help make it easier for you to learn it. And you can see that there's other stuff revolving around programming and just computational power just in general, or computational science rather, with Boolean algebra and problem solving and things like that. There's also another Linux oriented one right down here. Called regular expressions. Super powerful pattern tool, crazy complex. In this, you can see right here, it says in this tutorial you'll learn how to write elegant and powerful regular expressions. That one, I will say, is a little bit more for advanced users, and some people are going to be faster at learning things than others, and that's okay. I consider myself average, maybe just a pinch above average. Like if 50 is middle of the road, I am like 51, maybe 52. So this is something that will just take practice, and it's not always necessarily going to be about who's the smartest and who learns the fastest. It's going to be who has the most grit, who's willing to put in the work and time and effort to learn this stuff. And Ryan's tutorials is a great place to start to learn your Linux journey. Now, one of the other things that I want to go ahead and go over is it's a book called The Linux Command Line. It's by a gentleman called William Schatz. William Schatz puts this out in availability for free. You can go ahead and buy the book. I actually own the book as well, just because I did want to go ahead and give some support to the man, because this is a great book. It starts off with simple Linux and gets into the more complex topics. And it's kind of like a short, kind of introduction to the Linux command line, utilizing and even some administrative administration of Linux systems. And you can see here it's clearly available in multiple languages. And it looks like they're also working on getting it in additional languages, which is fantastic, because this is a great resource. And I highly encourage you, and he'll give you examples that you can recreate in the shell, yourself, and follow along all the way through. And that's what I did when I was kind of working through it. And you can go through it. Since it's a free resource, you can feel free to go through this 100 times. I plan on going through it again, just because I learn more from repetition and doing than I do from just reading through it. So this is another great resources. And again, it's got this really cool robot. I don't know what it is about these robots, but I'm a sucker for them. That's part of the reason I use Pop! OS, is that dang robot that they got. This one is, that guy and this guy are very like Iron Giant-esque, and I love it. So feel free to utilize this resources. And one thing I would encourage you to do is, if there are opportunities for you to be able to support these creators, if you have it within your financial means, go ahead and do that. Like I said, I bought a copy of the book because I wanted to be able to support the work that he does. And make sure that, for all, I don't know much about this gentleman. He could be a multimillionaire, but regardless, he's still putting in that time and that effort. And, he cares about Linux and the Linux community. So I want to go ahead and support those efforts in whatever way that I can. And you can see here on the website, there's, you can go through here and learn the shell this way. A lot of this stuff is the same thing that you'll see in the book itself, writing shell scripts as well. If you just want to go ahead and come through here and actually just learn these specific resources, yourself, then you can go ahead and go through there and do that. And then there's other resources that are here. as far as man pages, shell scripts, some popular series from the blog, because there is a blog down here. I've actually never really gotten into this website as much, but there's a lot of resources. And then there's adventures, um, where you can, it looks like do different types of just exercises and things like that. Great opportunity to learn even more. And then, he's got the blog down here with his most recent post being August 19th, 2020. So here's the gentleman here. Looks like he is a retired computer professional who wrote a book, takes pictures, studied industrial design, thinks about the universe, advocates for Linux and free software. You can follow him there. So there you go. There's a little bit about Mr. William Schatz. So definitely take advantage of this resource. Now, the next thing that I want to cover is Reddit. Reddit in general, is a lot of fun, and I've come to love it after being introduced to it about 2 years ago. After never have heard of it prior to 2 years ago, literally never heard of it. I haven't had cable in my pretty much most of my adult life, so I don't watch like regular TV. So a lot of this stuff doesn't, come up in a lot of the stuff that I watched. A lot of the stuff that I watched was on Netflix. And things like that. So, and this isn't like a big movie topic or anything like that, or something that comes up in that kind of entertainment regularly. Now, this right here is going to be a great resource. Now, it's called the Reddit thread is called Linux for Noobs, and you can see it up there in the left-hand corner. This is a great place to read through threads, and questions and topics and things like that, as well as post questions. I highly encourage you to search first, just to see if somebody's asked that question before. Go through there, and then if maybe the previous post didn't really address what it is that you're looking for, go ahead and go and ask your question to the community. And there's a lot of people that are going to be great that are in this community. They're wonderful people. Of course, you're going to have your typical trolls and your jerks and stuff like that, but that comes with the experience. Haters going to hate. I like to think they hate us because they ain't us. So, just kind of go on, take advantage of this free resource. I've posted in here a couple times, and a lot of these folks in here, they love helping. And occasionally I've been able to go ahead and help out, but a lot of times it's very, very complex issues that I have not personally come into contact with. But it's a great thing where you can kind of, if you want to create, different scenarios, to try, practice different things, you can pick up those here, and utilize those, as kind of like a test case. And things like that. So it is a great resource. You sign up for a Reddit account. Mine is Ashley Atwood. It's kind of like my pseudonym that I use for online purposes. It's nothing that I hide or anything like that. I just prefer not to put my whole name out there. But there's a lot of them. You look at the hacking community, and a lot of these people, a lot of these famous hackers. Everybody knows who they are, but they're not changing it. And they're not trying to hide anything, just like I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm trying to be as open as possible. So Reddit, will give you a certain sense of anonymity. So if you maybe just, maybe you feel, a little insecure about asking a question, this will, it's not you, it's whoever your pseudonym is asking that question. So it's a great community. There's lots of other threads. You can just start typing in Linux here at the top. Linux Master Race, Linux Admin, Linux for Noobs, Linux Gaming. There is one that I love to look at. It's called Linux Memes, which is always a lot of fun. Just if you just need a little bit of Linux humor in your life, it's a great place to start. It's like, hey, Pac-Man friends, are you two friends? Arch, no. Manjaro, yes. And you'll kind of learn kind of some of the backstory, or you will, to these types of memes, because Manjaro is a fork of Arch, but it's more of a total desktop version and kind of doesn't really follow a lot of the the things that people like about Arch. But hey, I'm like, Linux is Linux. I'm not a hater. So hey, if you're gonna use Manjaro, you'll never hear me hate on you, and I say more power to you. Now, now let's go ahead and cover YouTube. YouTube is a fantastic resource. It's what you're using right now if you're listening, if you're watching this video. This is a gentleman by the name of Chris Titus. He's a tech guy. I believe he's out of like the Dallas area in Texas, which is great because it's really close to me. I live in San Antonio, Texas. He's just a few hours up the road, so it's always nice to see my state represented. But he started a YouTube channel, I think about 2 years ago, and he got really just frustrated with Windows 10, and what Windows has become, and that's one of the things that I've kind of come to realize. And um, yeah, and he still uses it for certain things. I still use it for certain things, and I'm not going to sit there and lead the mob with the pitchforks and everything like that out there to cut off the head of the evil Microsoft monster, or whatever the case is. I'm not going to do that. That's not what I do. If you want to go ahead and use it, that's fine. I completely understand it. I'm just letting you know that there are alternatives here, and that's what he does too. He'll cover Windows. He'll cover Windows stuff. He'll cover Mac OS stuff, and it covers mostly Linux stuff, and it's fantastic. And he's a big advocate for it. And his channel blew up, and you can see it here. He's got this particular video right here is how to learn Linux. It's from last year. That was a great video. Just kind of gives you some tips, kind of similar to what I'm doing here. But he's only been in the game for about 2 years, but he's already got 222,000 subscribers, and his live streams people are pretty active. And contribute a lot to the dialogue and things like that. And he's a fantastic resource. But there are other people that are out there, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, a gentleman named Joe Collins. There's also a guy named Network Chuck, does cover some Linux topics. He does a broad range of things. So you will get some use out of the stuff that he does as well. He covers quite a bit of Kali Linux in recent years, because he's kind of doing a little how to hack series kind of thing. So that's a great resource. Here's the gentleman, Joe Collins. This is what introduced me to him, was this video right here, Learning the Linux File System. He does a great job of explaining it. And you can just see here in the suggested videos, just different stuff. Some of the stuff is not related to Linux, but you can see that there's a lot of stuff out here. Here's another one, Gary Explains. He covers all sorts of stuff. I think he works for a site or company called Android Authority. So he covers a lot of that stuff, but he also covers Linux topics and things like that. So there's so many resources on YouTube. And you could just type in something as simple as Linux tutorial for beginners, do a search, and then you can see right here, this one, Introduction to Linux and Basic Linux Commands for Beginners, the complete Linux course, beginner to power user, how to learn Linux, which is the video we were just in. There's so many of them out there. And the great thing about it is that even if you're using some of these older videos, it's still going to be very relevant, because the evolution of the terminal, bash, whatever you want to call it, it's just basically built on the same model. It's just kind of just built and built and built, just like any other operating system. So like they will deprecate commands and stuff like that, but a lot of that stuff still works, and sometimes you can still actually add it. For example, now primarily the IP, it used to be use the ifconfig command to check your network connections and things like that. Now they're primarily pushing the IP command, and a lot of the more recent distributions will not actually have ifconfig installed by default. It'll have IP installed by default, but you can actually go and add the network utilities that will allow you to use ifconfig if you want to use it. That just shows you that you can still utilize those things. It may down the road start impacting other things, but you can always deal with that when it comes if you want to. It's going to be solely up to yourself. But YouTube is a fantastic resource for learning things for free. that's what I'm doing. I'm learning things on my own, and I'm sharing those things with you fine people out there. Because I want to go ahead and pass on what I'm learning, and you'll notice that there may not always necessarily be a a coherent strategy or approach to the topics that I'm covering. It's just because I'm like, hey, I learned this, and hey, here you go. Like, run with it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna just not share this information because I've taken so much from other people. I want to be able to go ahead and give back. And again, I'm utilizing this channel really, as I've said previously, to help build up my experience within IT concepts, Linux, things like that. So, the next thing that I want to go ahead and cover is there is a site called TecMint.com. They offer a free Linux guide for Linux. You can go ahead and work through here. You can see that there's lots of sections, lots of information that you can learn here. This is, you can start with the basics and work all the way up to more complex topics, all for free. And this is I've worked through some of it, picked and chose a little bit here, a little bit there as I've kind of needed it. But look at this. It's just absolutely insane how many things that they have covered through this. It's great. This is the kind of stuff that I like to see. And yeah, they're for profit, but that's the beauty of it, is that they're putting this out there to try to help people. They're not, yeah, they're asking you, hey, buy me a coffee, contribute, and you should, because there's lots of other resources on their website. I'm only covering Linux at this point in time, learning Linux. So it's a fantastic resource. Highly encourage it. Now, the next thing that I want to go ahead and cover is going to be the wikis. Just like Wikipedia exist, so do wikis for distributions. I've pulled up the one here for Arch. They have probably, from what I've heard, one of the best. I have not dabbled a lot in Arch yet. It is one of those things that I will dabble in eventually. I'd like to do a complete installation of Arch from start to finish, all the way through, literally picking and choosing every piece along the way. Is one of the goals that I'd like to achieve in my future, and I would plan on putting that out there on the channel when I decide to go ahead and do that. Can't tell you when, but I'm planning on doing it at some point in time down the future. But these are going to be great because they cover really everything, And this right here is just the main page. It's you've got the distribution, our community. It tells you how to search it, reading stuff. You can start searching this way. You can just do, table of contents. And look at this. Displays, digital imaging, widget toolkits, issue tracking. What is this? Laptops. And these are all the different laptops. Look at that. That is absolutely insane, the number of laptops they cover. These people are dedicated. And this is the type of people that I like to see, because they will learn this stuff, and then they will put it out here. They will make it work, and they will share it with their fellow humans that utilize the same stuff that they do. And look at this. It just goes on and on and on, and that's what a lot of them are like. Some of them are going to be better than others. Sometimes you may not actually be able to find anybody who's experienced what you have, and you may have to start going and getting creative and searching other distributions to see, okay, well, similar distributions, like all the ones that are based on Ubuntu. More or less same. Pop! OS has some deviations, for sure, from Ubuntu. Majority of things I can get probably at least as far as my experience, I've got about 90 to 95% of Ubuntu programs, tricks, tips, all that stuff to work on Pop! OS. There are some things that just are not going to, and you can do research to try to figure it out. See if anybody else has come across it, and they have their own pages, and it's run by a company, so that this feedback is probably going to make it back to that company at some point in time. So these are things that I highly encourage you to use. You could literally, if you wanted to learn everything about it, you could literally just go all the way from front to back. I am sure there are people that have gone all the way from front to back of this wiki page. And kudos to them. That takes a lot of dedication, a lot of patience. But that tells you, how dedicated they are to to this, to the Linux community and this distribution and things like that. So it's amazing. Now, one of the last things that I want to go ahead and cover, well, actually, second to last thing that I want to go ahead and cover is I want to go ahead and just go over the Linux Foundations training courses. Now, you can see clearly they have a lot of paid courses. Like, look, you can get Linux for system administrators. The course will teach you the skills you need to become a professional Linux systems administrator, and that costs $3,250. I don't know about everybody else watching this video, but $3,250 is outside of my budget. I'm not going to sit here and say that I would not pay it, but it's one of those things where it's not going to always necessarily be accessible to everybody. There's going to be quite a few people out there who can afford this type of course. And if you can, hey, that's great. We don't want to hate on those people. They're in that position because, they work to get to that position typically. So, we utilize what we control what we can control. And we work with what we have available to us. We can see that there's more that are here that will be paid, but then they have free training courses. Open source licensing basics for software developers, a beginner's guide to open source software development, a beginner's guide to Linux kernel development, introduction to Linux. There we go. Perfect. $0. That's always going to make us holla. You know what I mean? Because, we're, especially in this video, we're learning about free stuff. But, there's a lot here for free. Look at this. Way more free ones than there are, at least on this page. I haven't really dug as much to look at all the different ones, but, well, maybe not because I did forget to scroll, but there's a lot of free ones on this page. So highly encourage you. They're the ones who basically oversee Linux, the kernel and things like that. So definitely check out this resource. Now, probably we're going to call this the piece de la resistance as far as anything related really to Linux, learning anything in regards to tech and just in general, period. Do a Google search. You can use Google, you can use Bing, you can use DuckDuckGo. Just type it in there. Say, install NVIDIA drivers Ubuntu. Let's just do that. How to install NVIDIA driver on Ubuntu 20.04. Install NVIDIA drivers on Ubuntu. Look at that. Videos, stuff. And we're not even using Google, and I can tell you right now, DuckDuckGo's algorithm is not necessarily as, I shouldn't say it's not necessarily as good. It's not as simple. It's not as simple to use as the Google algorithm. You can type in all sorts of crap and Google's going to be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're looking for." But you can say right here, this is going to be like your best friend. Your best friend. This is how I discovered all of these different resources, was through utilizing Google searches. So use it. It's free. Using Google and some of the other search engines, the freeness of it is really, yeah, I understand that there's some things that you're accepting as far as privacy goes and things like that, but I'm just talking about as free as in $0. That's what we mean by free here. So, all right, so that's going to cover the different free Linux learning tools that are free on the internet. Keep in mind, this is by no means a free free Linux learning comprehensive list or anything like that. There are so many resources. I just wanted to share with you some of the ones that I've come across because to me these are just phenomenal resources, and I'm so grateful and indebted to each one of these resources, individuals that are involved, and the ones that have shaped my experience. So I hope that you'll get out the same experience of what I've gotten out of these folks, and I'm sure you will. So that's going to go ahead and conclude our first episode of Linux Sundays. Again, you're always going to know it's Linux Sundays because you're going to hear the foghorn. That's going to let you know. So if you like the content that I'm making here, go ahead and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. Please feel free to leave a comment if you want to just say hi. That's fantastic. Got any feedback, any concerns, anything like that? Just put it down in the comments. Be nice to people in the comments. That's one of the things I ask. But thank you very much for watching my video, and have a great day.